This land eats people and never vomits its bones, but if I take a bite of the land directly, how should you respond? The gray pupils hanging on the bridge said so. You're right, but my tornado is not alone. Fill in the occupation for employment. That must be close guard. Heavy equipment can only be beaten, vanguard is not suitable for me, special. Kelshina's old spine cat said I am not suitable. As for auxiliary and medical care, take a look at the big sword in my hand before we talk. As for you, sorcerer. Laugh to death, how can a dry sorcerer have a future? What is the reason why the medical department chased after gray eyes and ran more than 3 laps on the deck of Rhode Island? Can Lushir emit bursts of silly laughter for the late night? Why does the Rhode Island power plant always emit howls of sorrow? Why do Rhode Island blood banks always produce plasma from unknown sources? Stay tuned for the large-scale Terra documentary, The Legend of Grey Eyes, director's edited version, original plot, plus, high IQ protagonist, plus, Notre Dame, plus, bad personality, plus, Arc of Tomorrow, plus, Joyful Man, plus, Assassination Resolute. This is definitely a new boat article you haven't seen. What are you waiting for? Join the bookshelf, doctors. Chapter 0. Previewing Statement of Books. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I'm back again, kids. I was just dragged back to heaven by the prison master and the prison hua to play the resurrection game, and almost didn't recover. Fortunately, I am a sports student with a strong physique, so I directly won the first place in the heaven resurrection game, okay. Newcomers are still reading below, while true old book friends have already started to click on the next chapter with a smile. Next is the popular declaration of folding armor. I fully support socialism and the leadership of the CPC. There is nothing inconsistent with the socialist core values in this book. Please review and clarify. This work is for the author's personal entertainment only and has nothing to do with real-life events. Please do not bring it into or associate it with others. Any ideology that appears in this work is not related to the ideology in reality. The content of this book is only literal and is not intended to be used as a reference for war, navy, or cross-talk. It is for personal reflection and does not represent any other group or individual. There are no metaphors, hints, cross-talk, flashbacks, or sensational ideas. My family is harmonious and healthy, without any psychological or mental illness, and my intelligence is at a normal level. My opinions and comments only represent my shallow personal views. Non-professional academic content is only for personal use, and some content is only speculation and does not represent reality. It is not related to my group, parents, relatives, or the province or city where I am located. If you have different opinions, please politely discuss and thank you for pointing them out. This statement does not contain discrimination against any group and does not imply any provocation of opposition. My cognitive scope is shallow, I do not have a professional team, and the content is biased towards personal ideas. If there are any misunderstandings or ambiguities, please feel free to correct them. Any similarity in the content of this book is purely coincidental. If you have any doubts, please feel free to reply to me by private message. Due to the large number of private message comments and limited time, not responding in the short term does not mean ignoring them. Not replying may also be due to slipping hands and not seeing it. The font used in my work is free and there is no malicious infringement. If there is any infringement in my work, please prove that it is related. The author will handle it as soon as possible. My expression ability is average, and my facial expression management is poor. If my expression is too lacking, it is not a malicious disdain for a certain person, group, or group. The opinions of my book friends in the comments section are not my own thoughts, nor do they represent my intentions. If I like content that you do not approve of, it is purely a slip of the hand, and it is not intentional targeting you, your group, or organization. My video content is imaginative and often deviates from common sense. If there is any ambiguity, please correct me as a human on Earth. I love the cultural civilization of the Earth and have no anti-human tendencies. I promise not to send Earth coordinates to the 3-body, nor have I disclosed Earth information to any aliens, other dimensional civilizations, parallel universes, other universes, or parallel universes. My personal gender is male, and I firmly support gender equality. The order of gender is not before or after, and I use language that is more commonly used on the internet, without any malicious intent. I have no intention of entertaining serious topics. I promise to love small animals, and if I compare people to dogs, I will only make fun of them. I have no intention of trampling on human dignity, human rights, or discriminating against animals. I am of average quality and do not possess any professionalism in my speech. It is for reference only. I will take full responsibility for my published content. If there are any negative comments in the comments, it is recommended to blacklist or report them for handling by oneself, rather than ignoring or acknowledging the negative content. Any similarity in content is purely coincidental. I have no intention of establishing Kazdali on Terra land, and all actions of the protagonist are not my responsibility. During the creation of this work, no member of the integration movement was harmed. I firmly support the principles and policies of the party in the state, firmly oppose all acts of separatism, consciously abide by and strictly implement the regulations on the governance of network information content ecology, with the goal of creating a clear network space and building a good network ecology, and oppose fascism, imperialism, hegemonism, and network hegemony. Promote the socialist spirit. It is purely a fictional relationship, with no relation to reality or any relation to reality. Please review and approve. Thank you. Wishing you happiness every day. By the way, this game is usually updated randomly, but if there are no unexpected incidents, it will still update one chapter every day steadily. This chapter may be updated periodically in the future, so just treat it as a bulletin board. 1.0 version update content. Fixed some bugs left over from previous versions in the work, updated more storylines, and added more brand new settings and characters. The above is all the updated content for version 1.0. Thank you for your support of this game. 1.1 version, Disruptor, update content. More chapters have been updated. Fixed some bugs left over from previous versions. Corrected the direction of the plot. The above is all the updated content for version 1.1 of Disruptor. Thank you for your support of this game. 1.2 version, previous corner, update content. More chapters have been updated. More plot background stories have been added. Slightly revised the direction of the plot. Added more details. The above is all the updated content of version 1.2, previous corner. Thank you for your support of this game. 1.3 version, Spark, update content. Fixed some bugs. More chapters have been updated. More detailed settings have been added for everyone to watch. Added more new characters and storylines. Added and supplemented version names. Added more knives. Added version trailer. The above is all the content of the 1.3 version, Spark, update. Thank you for your support of this game. At the same time, we will bring you version 1.4 of the farce ending version, which includes foresight, panic, suppression, execution, redemption, gray pupils, suffering, and more. Multiple staff members will join Rhode Island in version 1.4, and a new activity called Gray Eyes Working Chronicle will be opened. In this activity, doctors can play the role of gray pupils who work and pay off debts. At the same time, they can also exchange limited clothing for gray pupils in the store, such as Working Mad Demon. There are also more interesting gameplay, so stay tuned. Chapter 1. Our USAS snow plane is like this. You are listening at novelfull.audio. USAS snowfield, Sakaz cursed, I'm freezing to death. A Sakaz is warming up by the fire, and from her incessant cursing, it can be seen that she should be feeling a little upset now. The map that this bastard sold to me cannot be a counterfeit of Sakaz cursing, can it? I have been following the map for 5 days with his Sakaz cursing. Grey Tong thought he should be the most unlucky traveler in the world. He thought he didn't have any systematic golden fingers after crossing, and at least he had some different abilities, right? As soon as I got to the place to see, oh my goodness, tomorrow's arc. Send. At first, Grey Eyes even wanted to reopen for a while, but she realized that things didn't seem so bad either. Although she had become Sakaz, at least she wasn't an infected person who disliked dogs. At first, Grey Eyes thought she had hit her luck, but when she was chased by the source stone insect swarm on the snowy plain and had no ability to fight back, she regretted it. It hasn't passed away, it's not a big problem. At least by being familiar with the plot, one can still get by. Grey pupils are comforting themselves so much. But when she saw the date in the newspapers on the streets of Usas a few years later, Grey Tong swore that she had never wanted to die like that before. TMD travel is too early. They haven't started to fight against Gaul yet. After being tormented by this land for several years, Grey Eyes finally arrived at the time of the main plot. TMD, do you know how I came through these years? Grey Tong was clearly lost in memories. After all, she hadn't noticed that the map in her hand was about to fall into the fire. Where did you get that sticky smell? Sakaz curses. My map. Grey Tong quickly rescued the map, fortunately, only burned a corner. However, the fire that had been wasted for a long time was extinguished again, which can only be considered as my own misfortune. Let me see, the location where the integration movement appears should be around here. If that damn Ribbley didn't deceive me, Sakaz cursed, I would have believed him if I thought he was Ribbley, but I've been searching for him for 5 whole days and haven't arrived yet. If I see him again next time, I'll definitely pluck his feathers. Grey pupils stood up cursing, unable to do anything. The fire had already extinguished, and they had to continue searching for integration movements. Otherwise, Wasa's snow plain was not a joke to you. Quickly, Grey Tong found the location on the map where the integration movement was said to have appeared, more precisely, it was the location where the integration movement had come before. That was a slave mine, with blood and traces of battle scattered throughout the mine. The person in charge of the mine was hanged in his own office, and from the scars on his body, it was obvious that he was not a good boss during his lifetime. From the traces left by the integration movement, they should have been away for several days, and the blizzard has already buried the traces of their progress. However, this is not difficult to overcome. The direction where the bloody smell is spreading has been found, they are walking this way. They did not conceal the smell of blood on their bodies. Obviously, they did not care about this. After all, on the snowy plain of Usas, no one could find them who had left a few days ago based on the blood stains left a few days ago, let alone rely solely on the bloody smell left on site. But unfortunately, they encountered grey pupils. Now that we have found the location for integrating the movement, the next step of the plan can also begin. Grey pupils left the mine. It is obvious that finding the direction does not mean that one can reach the destination smoothly. Grey Tong looked at the small natural disaster in front of him and expressed his frustration. This small natural disaster is so deadly that it happens to be in the middle of 2 snow-capped mountains, blocking the road to death. Grey Tong looked at the mountain range that cleverly connected with the natural disaster to form a great wall, as if saying to himself, that's right, this is what we see in the Usas snow plain. Grey Tong only feels a headache now. If he were here during his heyday, he would still have the confidence to resist this small natural disaster. However, his current strength is already weak, and even if he is affected by a small natural disaster, he can afford to drink a pot of water. Now, relying solely on himself will definitely not be able to pass, at least he needs to get a car. Just as Grey Tong was thinking about how to build a car on this bird-proof snowfield, a crossbow arrow shot at his feet. Hey! You better be sensible and surrender directly. Otherwise, we can't guarantee where the next crossbow will be fired. Look, I was just talking about where to get a car, isn't that why I'm here? Chapter 2. Life always has ups and downs. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The roar of the engine echoed in the snow, and a team of mercenaries got off a significantly modified car. Boss. The mining site mentioned by the client is here. A rupper compared the address given by the client with the map in his hand, confirmed the target, and began to wear equipment. Wear your gear. After finishing this order today, I'll invite you to drink. Great. Long live the boss. Guys, we need to do a good job today. Captain Yo * mute the noise. Feng Ti, who had a broken horn, smiled at the excited team members under his command, but his heart had already transformed into Mother Killer. TMD and these guys are usually paralyzed like TM, and even moving too much feels tiring. When it comes to inviting them to drink, 1 by 2 is more motivating than anyone else. This mercenary squadron is one of the ones that performs quite well in this area. Although there is no assistance, the team of 8 people is well equipped, with 2 heavy equipment, 1 guard, 2 snipers, 1 vanguard, and 1 mage. The only medical treatment in the team is provided as a father. Although the almost perfect configuration has made this mercenary team thrive in this area, the main reason is that there is nothing too dangerous in this area. As long as they do not encounter a source stone insect tide or be hit by natural disasters, they can retreat completely. However, there is no danger, which means there are no big orders to take on. The lack of money to account for a month has led to their economic situation getting worse and worse. It's not that there are no orders to take on, but it's not a dangerous order to investigate the location of the source stone insect infestation. It's just a small order to go and complete it, and the money given is not enough to burn the source stone. The most important thing is that they haven't even dared to drink alcohol in the past month. At this moment, the mayor of the small town issued a notice that the nearby slave mines had been destroyed one after another, and all the builders and managers inside had been killed. The slaves inside had also been rescued, and their industries had been destroyed one after another in their own territory. In a fit of anger, the noble clan issued a reward. As long as someone could catch the culprit who destroyed their own industry, they would reward him with 5,000 synthetic jade. If the culprit can be directly killed, once confirmed, a reward of 45,000 lily jade will be given. If only the person providing relevant information confirms the reliability of the information, there will also be a reward of a full 500 synthetic jade. It can be seen that this nobleman is indeed very angry. His industries have been destroyed one after another in his own territory. In his view, this is an insult and contempt to himself. And this team happened to encounter this order after not opening for a month, so it's impossible to refuse. After parking the car, this team entered the mine. A shield-wielding Sakaz looked at the destroyed slave mine and couldn't help but marvel at how wealthy people would still play. The office of a mine was built so extravagantly. Other people have come here before. Rupper, holding a crossbow and arrow, pointed to the footprints left by Grey Eyes and said, "These footprints are very fresh and should have left here shortly. Ronald, please look around and see if there are any other traces left around here. This guy probably didn't come along the way with him, but even if they weren't together, we can still make him come together." Feng Ti, who had one horn broken, looked at the set of footprints with a grim smile and said, "Because the weapon is a heavy hammer and another horn is broken, he is known as the one-horned heavy hammer in the circle of mercenaries. Can you expect these mercenaries who cannot recognize all the characters to have any level of naming ability?" Quickly, they found Grey Eyes and followed them up. If they could follow this guy to their headquarters and report to the nobles, they would make a lot of money. After a while, seeing Grey Eyes being stopped by a natural disaster, they decided to catch her first and then interrogate the headquarters of these guys. Even if this guy is not an accomplice of that group, they still have a way to make this guy surrender. They have done this kind of thing more than once, practice makes perfect. That's why you attacked me. Grey Tong looked at Feng Ti in front of him, who almost broke his other horn. He didn't know what to say. This guy swung a hammer at him without saying anything, causing his stress reaction to be triggered. He grabbed his hammer and threw it at his teammate. It is obvious that they have not undergone systematic training, they are simply fighting each other without any tacit understanding. Their captain, as a heavy equipment, came directly to attack them, but their sniper actually stood still and sniped. Their guard is even more of a singer, surprisingly staying behind the sniper. Big brother, what do you think? However, standing in a straight line also made it convenient for Grey Tong. Watching their captain knock his team members off one by one made Grey Tong feel very relieved. Life is always full of ups and downs, and these guys never expected that they would be annihilated by one person. Mysterious number fragments. 2. Chapter 3. Will the Sakaz female ghost meet the Sakata Tauren? You are listening at novelfull.audio. So, because several nobles' minds were destroyed and they issued huge rewards in a fit of anger, and because you didn't open for a month, you took the risk to come here, and because you found my traces in the mines, you became obsessed with finding me. After teasing his grey pupils for a while, he finally understood the cause and effect. If we knew that you were here, it would give us 100 courage, and we wouldn't dare to come and find fault with you. De Yen has an ancient saying. The material of the West is Wei Junjie. Since you have already been captured by others, don't worry about so much, let the other party see your own utilization value in order to be more likely to survive. Living is more important than anything else. The fact that this mercenary captain can lead the team to thrive in this area does not rely on hard power. Don't talk to me about these pitram calves. I don't have time to chat with you. From now on, your car has been requisitioned by me, and also, load all your supplies onto the car for me. Grey Tong looked at them with a grim smile. Since it had fallen into her hands, she must ruthlessly squeeze them dry, to make use of their value. Squeeze every drop of their utilization value, until there is no more left. This. Your Excellency. Feng Ti, who had a broken horn, hesitated for a moment. Most of their money was spent on this car. And this guy not only wants this car, but also takes away all their supplies. What's going on? I'm not willing to. The threatening words from Grey Eyes immediately reminded the mercenary captain that they couldn't beat this guy together. If she gets angry, they won't have any good fruit to eat. No, 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 no. It's our honor to serve adults. What are you looking at? Why don't you go and load the adult's car? Grey Tong looked at this guy who clearly wanted to kill himself, but was forced to admit his own strength. He was extremely happy. Indeed, taking pleasure in the pain of others on this land is the happiest thing. Zayu, the guy who was killed by me alone despite having 8 people is Zayu. How did you useless people become mercenaries? Your existence is simply tarnishing your industry. You are social worms, as so disgusting. You have such a virgin aura on you from career to life, you are all safe losers. You can only fight handguns at paper, right? Although Grey Eyes has already exceeded 3 digits in age, it does not prevent her from transforming into a female ghost and jumping face crazily in the mercenary team, laughing to death. If she could face this group of guys who are not even as good as self-destructing source stone worms and be covered with thin gauze, then she might as well just hit and die on Kelsey's steel plate. It is obvious that the cross-generational mockery of Grey Eyes is not something that these mercenaries who don't even recognize words can resist. A few people wanted to argue with Grey Eyes on the spot, and Grey Eyes made them experience what it means to have a baby-like sleep. Being young is good, just go to sleep when you're down. Grey Tong looked at the only team leader and the medical team left and smiled, saying that the rest of them had fallen asleep with Grey Tong's enthusiastic help. Grey Tong felt proud of his kindness. Wait a moment, why do you always feel like there are 3 figures looking at you from behind? Gray pupils looked back with suspicion. Nothing. Not right. Gray Tong remembered the identities of those three figures: musky faceless black uncle, hypnotic obese balding man, blackout Juji Shaojing Tai. Isn't TM the big three of Tauren? I just chuckled a few words. Shouldn't I summon the three of them? Of course, even if the three of them really come, gray eyes won't become the standard ending for female little ghosts. That's a plot that can only appear in mysterious places, rumored to be a paradise that requires gathering 9 mysterious numbers. Sir, we have already installed your car, do you think so? The mercenary captain swallowed as he watched the team members who had been helped asleep by their gray pupils. If I hadn't served this ancestor well, I'm afraid I would have ended up like this myself. Alright, you can go now. Gray Tong walked towards the car that was already loaded with supplies. Sir, then these team members of mine. This guy may not have a good character, but at least he is responsible to his team members. I've had enough fun, you can take them away. They were just knocked unconscious by me. Gray Tong sat in the driver's seat and said without looking back. Thank you, sir. We're leaving now. Gray Tong ignored them and drove straight into the natural disaster. Mysterious number fragments. 1. Chapter 4. Arriving at Chernberg. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhong. Why is this thing starting to smoke again? Gray Tong looked at the car that was no different from the ghost fire fighting car and roast that he had no choice but to pass through the whole small natural disaster. This car was only hit once by the pieces of falling rocks, which was lucky. However, it was on the verge of being scrapped. Even the pieces of falling rocks could not be carried by the Audubio's hand-rubbed fighting car. Gray Tong didn't think that his 8 characters could handle these 2 smoky ghost fire fighting cars. Anyway, I'm almost there already. After repairing the materials on the car, this thing should still be able to be driven. It should be able to get to the place with just a few clicks. After a while, Gray Tong looked at the car and supplies that had already been burned in the fire, leaving only the frame, and accepted the fact that he had no talent for repairing cars. I haven't passed away, and it shouldn't be too far from now. Let me be healthy. Shua. How far is it from Sakaz cursing? Gray pupils watched as there was still a long way to completely break through the defense. There's no way, let's go. We can't expect this land to bring her another cerebral palsy mercenary, can we? Meanwhile, Rhode Island, this operation must be swift. Successfully rescue the postdoctoral fellows and immediately retreat. Kelsey reiterated the objectives of this operation to the staff in the Rhode Island conference room. At the same time as everyone in Rhode Island had a meeting, the integration movement also began its own actions in Chernberg. Members of the integration movement began their actions, and the city was filled with plunder and pain. What are you doing? Don't come over. Let go of me. Stay away from him. Such tragedies are everywhere in this city, and this group of people who have been oppressed for a long time have put on masks and become new oppressors. They seem to believe that as long as they double their oppression, they can achieve what is called fairness. Even though these people may not have harmed any of them from beginning to end. Ah, has it already started? It seems like I'm not too late. Gray pupils looked at Chernberg, who was in chaos, and the flames reflected in her gray pupils on the city that had already been filled with chaos. No one cares about the gray pupils. In this land, Sakaz and the infected have long been linked together, as if Sakaz was born an infected person. Stereotypes have long been imprinted in everyone's minds, and integration movements do not regulate the infected. Their targets of violence are only the residents of Chernberg. Gray pupils searched for the doctor's location according to memory, but it was obvious that she was not successful. After all, there are only a few descriptions of the buildings around the doctor in the plot. It is obviously unrealistic to rely solely on these to find a doctoral position. Gray pupils looked at the burning Chernberg and remembered the time in Kazdali. At that time, not long after being rescued, there were wars everywhere. I sneaked out while there was no one around, but unfortunately, I pretended to be part of the Sakata team that was sneaking around and attacked. Seeing that Grey Tong was a Sakaz, I couldn't help but fire at her. The etching bullet flew towards me like it didn't cost any money, and I had to run back into the room. That team of Sakata was quickly discovered, and later he couldn't remember it clearly. I only remember that I started going to the battlefield later on. The battlefield was filled with blood and artillery fire, and death and wailing became the most common sounds I heard, even to the point of boredom. Forget it, let's not look for it for now. When the boat reaches the bridgehead, it will naturally go straight. As long as the agents from Rhode Island come, I'll just follow through and learn from them. I'm really smart. Gray pupils feel proud of their foresight. Mysterious number fragment. 7. Chapter 5. Past and Past. You are listening at novelfull.audio. USAS Snowfield, Chernberg, why are you blocking me here with this Sakaz cursing. I'm willing to. On the rooftop of a tall building in Chernberg, two Sakazis looked into each other's eyes without concealing their malice and disdain for each other. Would you be willing to use your Sakaz profanity? What exactly is your Sakaz profanity trying to do? The quality of the white-haired Sakaz is obviously not very good. If it weren't for being unable to defeat this guy in front of me, I would definitely blow this guy up. Shut up. I'll shut you up, you're just a Sakaz. I'm a Sakaz, you're a Sakaz, gray-eyed, you're a Sakaz, I can go get you a Sakaz, you. Grey Tong looked at Sakaz in front of him, who had a very high horse content. He looked at the time and calculated that it was almost time. He left her alone. Grey Tong decided to ignore W, who had transformed into the telegraph ape. If it weren't for something else to do right now, she would have thrown W out of Chernberg and left her to fend for herself. But it's not too late now, so Grey Tong approached W with a mischievous smile on his face. W stopped talking trash because she saw that Sakaz vulgar thing walking towards her with a mischievous smile on its face. Do you remember someone in the integration movement once commented on her like this? It's not good for her to laugh. This is clearly more suitable for the Sakaz vulgar in front of her, okay. What do you mean by Sakaz cursing. At this moment, W's voice even had a noticeable vibrato, and she was not afraid to die, but the Sakaz vulgar thing in front of her never played according to the routine. Who knows how this Sakaz cursing thing will treat itself? Don't be nervous, W. I won't do anything. Gray pupils showed a whistling expression of plague core on their face, and their mouths spoke classic quotes from the villain. You and her, Sakaz is rough. W didn't even finish swearing and felt like he was flying up. Goodbye, inside. Gray pupils suddenly rushed over and grabbed W's leg, then threw her towards the direction of Chernberg's lower city area. Gray pupils, you Sakaz speaks rudely. Gray pupils looked at the figure who was cursing in the wind and moving away, feeling extremely happy. W should have flown to the lower city area in a while, right? I left a spell on her, she definitely won't fall to death, but she may have to fly for a while before landing. By the way, this is Shangcheng district. At this time, there are still 3 hours left until the outbreak of the Chernberg natural disaster. At the same time, Amia and her team found the doctor and defeated the surrounding integration movement members, preparing to return to the main ship in Rhode Island. Doctor, the battle command just now was very good. Are the people who integrate movements crazy? A security guard was observing the surroundings, wary of potential enemies that could appear at any moment. Unable to do anything, the members of the integration movement were like a group of bandits, leaving only corpses and ruins on the territory that had been visited by the members of the integration movement along the way. Amia always feels sad when she sees those corpses, but now is not the time for sadness. Amia told herself this. Don't get close to my child. Who can help us? A woman's cry came from the house on the street corner, and such scenes are common in this city, even in pacified mobile cities, let alone Chernberg, who was occupied by the integration movement. Sometimes heavy facts are more painful than 1,000 cuts. Gray pupils watched the scene below and let out a heavy sigh. The woman screamed as she saw the crystal of the source stone on Amia's outstretched hand, as if the infected person was even more terrifying than the thug who had just attacked them. She completely forgot that if it weren't for the owner of the hand she had discriminated against extending a helping hand to them, they would have become one of the many corpses in this city. After all, this was just a small episode, and Amia quickly picked herself up. As the leader of Rhode Island, the staff trusted her, and she couldn't be discouraged by such a small matter. She had to pick herself up, even though Amia was essentially just a child, she had already gotten used to this kind of life. Since Teresa passed on the power of the Demon King to her before her death, she had to get used to it. Gray pupils stared at the distant figures of the group from Rhode Island in a daze. Her emotions were very complicated now. Since that incident, her relationship with everyone has been deteriorating. Finally, one day, the suppressed contradictions and conflicts completely erupted. Since that day, she has left them to work alone. Although she later calmed down and realized that all the conflicts and contradictions were actually due to her own reasons, it's better to say that they were able to tolerate their temper for such a long time before it erupted. She took good care of her, and she didn't want to go back and apologize to them. There's nothing difficult to say. She's not a child, and what really makes her unforgivable is the mistake she made back then. If it weren't for herself, Babel wouldn't have failed back then. After learning the truth, she was unable to forgive herself, which even became a knot in her heart. She even deliberately avoided Rhode Island. She walked in the opposite direction wherever Rhode Island was parked, left wherever the Rhode Island staff were, and even dared not face the Rhode Island icon on the store. She is evading. However, reality played a joke on her again. Even though she had been away for so many years, here she met the people of Rhode Island again. She knew that their meeting was inevitable, but she didn't know how to face them. Facing everyone in Rhode Island, she didn't know what to say if she saw them. How do I explain why I left when they were most vulnerable and needed her the most? Will they forgive themselves for leaving them just because of personal emotions back then? How do I explain where I have been all these years? What are you doing? Why is it appearing here again? How do I explain to Amia myself Teresa's death back then was due to her own fault? Mysterious number fragment. Woo. Chapter 6. Leaving Shangcheng District. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gray Pupil's brain was washed away by chaotic emotions, and self-blame and guilt spread like a plague in her heart. Just as she was immersed in the past and unable to extricate herself, a voice interrupted her thinking. I thought someone was following us, but I didn't expect it to be you. Haha. Scout. I knew I couldn't hide it from you. Gray pupils forced themselves to break free from their delusional state, looking at the incoming person as if they had already anticipated their arrival. At least I am also a seasoned sniper, captain of the reconnaissance team in Rhode Island. Can you deceive my team members? Can you also deceive me? Scout feels like he has never been so speechless before. Although his combat ability may not be as good as hers, his reconnaissance and reaction abilities can also rank high in Rhode Island. Hey! Why does this guy think he can make some noise and lure the reconnaissance team away? If she hadn't recognized this guy's figure herself, she would have succeeded. What does your pitiful expression mean? Gray pupils full of OVO on the face. Looking at Scout with a pitiful expression on his face, he realized that he had just saved Scout's reconnaissance team. He should be grateful to himself, right? Scout suppressed the urge to blow out the brainstem of the guy in front of him, supported his forehead, and said, after I found you, I feel like something big will happen. Let them escort the doctor back to the main ship in Rhode Island with Amia and the others. The natural disaster is hovering above our heads and could fall at any moment. After merging with Rhode Island, Ace is preparing to escort the doctor back to the main ship in Rhode Island. As the group of people in Rhode Island were talking and rushing along, the integration movement was not idle. A missed hit and the leader of the integration movement, who had attacked the Chernberg police, caught up. Take them down. This time, it will shatter you to pieces. The attackers in the fog seemed to have no intention of letting go of the Rhode Island group. As both sides were tense, a figure emerged from the mist. After clearing the southeast fortress, as soon as I heard your news, I rushed over immediately. This is already my area of handling, regicide. Team up. The attacker, known as the regicide, didn't say a word and left with his own people. Alright, now, I want to have a sacrificial competition with everyone. The boy, known as Mephist, smiled and spoke terrifying words that did not match his age. Next, my friends will keep trying to kill you. As long as you survive, you will win. How about the rules? It's very simple, isn't it? The boy seemed to be telling his friends about the rules of hide and seek, as if it were a very ordinary thing, telling the people of Rhode Island about the rules of the competition. This is a lunatic. This is the first impression that most people in Rhode Island have of the young man in front of them. No one wants to compete with this guy, and Dubin plans to take Amia and the others out of the encirclement. Amia, get ready, we may have to break through forcefully. While notifying Amia, Dubin searched for the enemy's breakthrough. The good news is that Dubin quickly found a breakthrough in the enemy's encirclement. The bad news is that there are too many enemies, and without reinforcements, they can only defend blindly and cannot break through. That's right. That's right. That's it. Next, F3, E5. Mephist seems to enjoy this one-sided battle very much. No, it can no longer be called a battle, it's simply a massacre. Are you leaving? Gray pupils looked at Scout, who had turned around and left, and said. Well, Rhode Island needs me now. Scout said without looking back. It seems that you have added many new members during my absence these years. Gray Tong looked at the procession heading towards Rhode Island and said, the golden celestial horse led by it shone brightly like sunlight. Very good. So, B4, B5. Mephist thought he was about to win and didn't notice the impending danger at all. Your speed is much slower than I estimated, but I have even managed to settle in as a civilian. Don't get in the way. Mephist was just about to know who the guy who talked to others without considering himself was when he heard the guy suddenly shout and disperse his formation. Increase your attack. Don't give the enemy a chance to reshape their formation. In the smoke and dust, the golden celestial horse with a shield revealed its figure, and the following team immediately joined forces with the people of Rhode Island. After the Rhode Island team received reinforcements, the once one-sided situation instantly reversed. Miss Lin Guang. I'm here. Looking at the person across from her who seemed to ignore her posture, Mephist's mood instantly sank. Faust, punch her mouth through me. As Mephist's words fell, an arrow flew towards Lin Guang's head. No, to be precise, the arrow flew towards Lin Guang's mouth, and Lin Guang immediately raised his shield to resist. Dang! With the sound of a metal collision, Lin Guang's figure emerged from the dust. Cough, cough. After blocking the incoming arrow in the light, Ace quickly found the enemy's position and said, target, south platform, shoot in unison. The archers of Rhode Island immediately launched a suppression against the enemy. We have successfully broken through and now we have basically left Chernberg's upper city area, said Durbin after the Rhode Island group left Mephist and his men. At the same time, integrating within the movement, can you help me track them in Rhode Island? I will report the situation to Sister Terra. Mephister said to Faust. Mysterious number fragments. 1. Chapter 7. Steel and Sulfur. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Almost every street is filled with organized thugs who are causing destruction, robbery, burning down transportation vehicles and shops. A medical worker looked anxiously at the rioters emitting a violent aura. Although these people wore masks and couldn't see their faces clearly, she could already imagine the crazy faces beneath their masks from their crazy movements and the excited laughter they burst out during the destruction. She couldn't imagine what she and her group would have experienced if it weren't for the Yao Knight leading the team to come and fall into the hands of Mephist, who was even more terrifying than these rioters. The shape of the Yuanshi cloud is clearer than the dark one just now. Dubin looked at the endless disaster cloud in the sky. In a city almost filled with integrated thugs, a natural disaster could happen at any time. It was almost impossible to escort the doctor back to the main ship in Rhode Island in a short period of time, unless a miracle occurred. But in this situation, Dubin couldn't imagine any miracle that could save the Rhode Island group from the dual threat of natural disasters and integration movements, as Chernberg could be destroyed by natural disasters at any time. While Dubin was contemplating countermeasures, a natural disaster struck. The sky turned red, and the falling rocks caused by the natural disaster destroyed nearby buildings. Boiling black clouds churned in the flames. Although everyone was mentally prepared for the power of the disaster, when they faced it directly, they couldn't help but panic. Don't panic. Ace dodged the falling rocks while stabilizing the people of Rhode Island. However, when the natural disaster struck, how could these agents who had not even penetrated the edge of the disaster not panic? Protect yourself. Lingguang cannot protect everyone. If possible, Lingguang would be willing to fight this natural disaster alone for Rhode Island and its people. However, unfortunately, in the face of harsh reality, sometimes you don't even have the right to sacrifice yourself. Lingguang can only hope that Rhode Island can withstand this disaster. We still have the opportunity to save our lives with action. Dubin slowly began to adapt to avoiding falling rocks and collapsed stairs in the natural disaster. Fortunately, this time it was only falling rocks, and if it were a thunderstorm, they would not even have the qualification to save themselves. The earth fell into silence, and fear took away their voices. A woman stands proudly in the ruins, and if you only look at her racial characteristics, it is difficult to find that she is actually a Drake. A huge source stone hangs down the head. Behind Drake, there were rows of cadres from the integration movement. Falling, it falls in the scorching shadow of death. The natural disaster landed in Chernberg, bombarding this city full of blood and scars, as if seeking revenge or taking an oath. The era of swearing to infected individuals is approaching. This is an era brought about by blood and violence, where the oppressed have become the thugs that ordinary people fear. History is always astonishingly similar, with the weak wielding their swords at the unarmed and even weaker, looking at the corpses of powerless people everywhere, as if this way they can become strong, but unaware that they have gradually become the people they once hated. Terra. The regicide looked at their leader, unsure of what he was thinking. The person who missed the net, you go deal with it. Taro Lamian Noodles gave an order to the regicide without expression, as if talking about a trivial matter. At the same time, after the rectification of Rhode Island, the group continued to move towards the lower urban area. As long as they reached the lower urban area, they were not far from completely leaving Chernberg. Fortunately, they were not at the center of the natural disaster, so the losses were not severe. Many staff members suffered minor injuries, but their condition was relatively good. The members of the integration movement seemed not to be so lucky. Some were smashed and broke, some died on the spot, and some were buried alive because they couldn't dodge. At this moment, this scene is happening everywhere in Chernberg. Some are integration thugs, some are residents who managed to escape from the integration thugs. They survived human disasters but couldn't escape natural disasters. This land never faces anyone. Surprisingly, even though the natural disaster caused heavy losses to the integration movement, it did not seem to have affected them at all. They still launched an attack on Rhode Island like crazy people. Rhode Island. A thug was about to charge into the Rhode Island formation when a bullet hit his head. Scout, captain of the reconnaissance team, returned to the team. Scout led his team to emerge from the ruins. When they were surrounded by Mephist's men on Rhode Island before, the reconnaissance team could not change the situation even if they appeared. In order to avoid unnecessary sacrifice, they had to wait and see what happened. Of course, if there was really no reinforcements, they would definitely not hesitate to sacrifice their lives to save the people of Rhode Island. Mr. Scout. Amia used her spell to repel an integrated thug while looking at Scout in surprise. She had already lost contact with the reconnaissance team after the natural disaster struck, but she didn't expect to see them again here. Now is not the time to reminisce. If you want to say anything, let's first repel the enemy's rear, Miss Amia. Scout said, casually popping the heads of one integrated movement thug after another. That's the smell of steel and sulfur. As if in response to Lin Guang's words, a smell of steel and sulfur rushed into the noses of everyone present. Accompanied by the smell of steel and sulfur, a white-haired drake appeared in the sight of everyone in Rhode Island. Surprisingly, with the appearance of this woman, the integration movement's thugs stopped attacking Rhode Island, waiting for her next instructions as if looking at their queen. Her identity is self-evident. Terra, the leader of the integration movement. This is probably a flame that can burn up this land. Lin Guang looked at the flames beside her. Even though there was a long distance between them, she still felt as if the blazing flames were burning in front of her. Without a doubt, Drake in front of her was a strong person, but Lin Guang did not retreat. Amia, take the doctor away. Lin Guang wants Amia and doctor to leave, and he leads his team to intercept the enemy. Although he is unlikely to be able to defeat her and is highly likely to be killed, at least he needs to delay time for Amia and doctor. Amia, you guys go first, and I'll stay too. Without any hesitation, Scout made the decision to face an almost invincible enemy and leave one more person, which could delay Amaya's journey with the doctor for even a second. Yao Knight, why don't you escort the doctor and his team? Scout and I can stay. Ace did not hesitate and led his team to stay on the scene without hesitation. Although they all knew who stayed here and who died, they wanted their lives to be exchanged for the survival of their teammates. The Night Yao fell silent. She also wanted to stay here, but staying here would be death. If everyone stayed here, it would only be a difference in how quickly they would be killed by that woman. If Amia and Doctor were not escorted, they would soon be killed by the integrated thugs. She must not disappoint her teammates and escort Amia and Doctor back to the main ship of Rhode Island. Even if it's at the cost of one's own life. Rhode Island will never leave you behind. Amia doesn't want to lose everyone. Everyone in Rhode Island treats her well and she doesn't want them to die, but the reality is that everything comes at a cost. Ace and Scout's team members are already prepared to use their lives to exchange for the lives of Amia and Doctor. Terra didn't have time to watch them perform a tragic drama, and two exploratory flames flew towards the team in Rhode Island. Boom. It's okay. Amia, take the doctor with you. Lin Guang barely blocked the flames, with almost no complete armor on her body. She was unsure if she could block the same attack again. Another flame hit the block behind them, and then the entire block melted visibly, just a casual probing by Terra. Retreat. The entire neighborhood is melting. Ace shielded Lin Guang and distanced himself from the terrifying woman. With just one flame, the people of Rhode Island clearly realized the difference in strength between us and the enemy. If this flame hit him, Ace wouldn't even have the confidence to move on. Terra is holding on to the flames in her hand, and the next blow will destroy all the proofs of their existence. You must always pay the price for killing your compatriots. I will give you an ending that I love very much. Destruction. Terra held up a terrifying flame, as if announcing the arrival of judgment. Mysterious number fragment. 0. Chapter 8. Mutual revealing of old stories. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just as Terra was about to let go of her attack, an integrated thug suddenly charged towards Terra and pierced her body with the blade in his hand. Although I don't know why the integration movement suddenly began to internal strife, it was a good opportunity for the Rhode Island team to seize and leave the battlefield. Before leaving, the doctor looked at the integration thug with an indescribable feeling. Why did he have a very familiar feeling about an enemy? Interesting. Who are you? When did you sneak in? You were able to conceal my perception. Interesting. Terra ignored the group of people from Rhode Island who had gone far away. The guy in front of her was able to conceal her perception and approach her, and even successfully injured herself. Interesting. This is just so fun. You guys step back first, this is not a battle you can deal with. Terra ordered the members of the integrated movement to leave this battlefield, where they would instead be constrained. The integrated thug took off his heavy uniform and revealed his body with scars inside. Alright, since they've all left, there's no need to cover up. Come on Drake, the second round. Everyone hold on. Hold on for a while longer and you'll be in the lower city area. Repeated high-intensity battles erupted in a row, and even the doctors who commanded everyone throughout felt a bit tired, not to mention the staff. However, fortunately, Terra was stopped by the sudden attack and integration of the rioters, although it is unclear why they suddenly started infighting. The thugs of the integration movement have not been as densely attacked by natural disasters anymore. As long as they are not alarmed, there is no problem taking a detour. Now, as long as there is no more trouble, do you want to leave Chernberg so easily? Someone should wake up your daydreams, right? The worst-case scenario has occurred. Lin Guang has just been seriously injured, and his combat ability has significantly decreased. It is optimistic that if there is another guy like Terra, there will be no other way. However, one thing to be grateful for is that Sakaz, who appears from the shadows, is not a strong person, she just seems to have some washed up. If I ever come across that Sakaz cursing again, I must blow her up to pieces. W was very unhappy because she was thrown by gray eyes and floated in the sky for a while. After landing, it took her a while to climb out of the ruins, so she killed several teams from Rhode Island to vent her anger. Alright, I have some questions I want to ask the doctor. Can you please give her directly to me? That's not possible. Firstly, buying and selling people is illegal, and even giving them away is not acceptable. Secondly, the doctor is our companion. Without her, we would have died long ago. Scout aimed at W and said. In other words, don't even think about it. It seems that due to the appearance of gray pupils, Ace, who has always been silent on the battlefield, has become talkative. For the order of a little girl, an unfamiliar woman. How many of you have died? If it weren't for me being dragged down, your reconnaissance team wouldn't even be able to come back. I'm really curious, what kind of magic do you have? That can make them all willing and worthless to work for you. Do you know that? After I caught your people, their mouths were very hard, and surprisingly no one said your location, so I detonated the source rock explosive in their mouths. Let them never speak again. I'm curious, do you really deserve someone else's sacrifice? W repeatedly used cruel words to stimulate Amia, trying to provoke her anger. What? Are you angry? Come on. Kill me. Revenge your companions. By the way, have you ever killed anyone? W seemed to be trying to say something, but the arrival of an integrated thug interrupted her madness. Withdraw to the lower city area and let them go, Terra's order. Got it. W, who was interrupted in his excitement, was very unhappy, but since Terra named them alive, let's save their lives for a while. Forget it, if things continue to drag on, they will become boring. I really hate boredom, that's all. W turned around and left, taking a photo of the integrated thug who interrupted his interest. Boom. Not long after she left the thug, the place she had photographed suddenly exploded, with blood and organs everywhere. Also, I hate people interrupting me. W turned around and left a sentence to the people of Rhode Island, ignoring whether they heard or not. The people of Rhode Island have a new understanding of the brutality of this madman. Amia felt sad about the deaths of the staff, but now is not the time for sadness. Tears stay until after the end of the war. Let's go. Doctor, we're going home. At the same time, Terra looked at the guy in front of her who had just been pierced by her for no less than 100 times and was still bouncing around. The feeling of her attack feedback told her that she must have really hit the guy in front of her, and even more than 50 times she went for her heart. Within a short period of time, it was penetrated no less than 100 times, and the heart was destroyed more than 50 times. Even a blood demon with sufficient reserves would not be able to bear it. She didn't believe that the guy in front of her was just an ordinary Sakaz. In theory, if there is such a number one person, it is impossible for oneself not to know, but unfortunately she did not take off her mask and cannot see her face clearly. Gray Eyes just disliked the inconvenience of integrating sports uniforms for combat, because they had met a few times before in USAS and Kozish, and were worried about being recognized and causing unnecessary trouble, so the mask was still not taken off. It's strange to say that this guy didn't react at all when he was penetrated by himself. Once he wanted to attack her mask, this guy would react quickly. He tried to stay away from this guy, but he ended up clinging to him like a dog's skin ointment. Now, by calculation, they should be almost in the lower city area. Gray pupils were engaged in a struggle with Terra while calculating the current position of the people in Rhode Island. The battle is always ever changing, and it is this moment of distraction that caught Tallulah's chance. A flame hit Gray Eyes in the head, but how can a mask made of ordinary materials withstand the flames that can burn down the neighborhood? Come on. Let me see what kind of face is under this mask. Terra looked at the figure gradually emerging from the smoke and dust, and her mouth couldn't help but curl up. After the smoke dissipated, Terra saw the smiling face, as if all the questions had been answered at this moment. So it's you now, it makes sense. I remember how many times we've seen each other at the banquet in Wasas. But when we first met, you were still a spirited director of the Research Institute, and I've never seen you again. I didn't expect to see you again after the banquet 5 years later, but you were still a towering director of the Research Institute 5 years ago. 5 years later, you became the most successful experimental subject in your institute. The most popular product. It seems that due to revealing the truth, Gray Tong's mood at this moment seems to be not very good. Let's talk about each other. Koshi Che de Gong, I didn't even realize it was you, why not? The previous shell has finally been raised. You, Dang Yen, can be the wind, light, unlimited. Small people and things like us can enter. Koshi Che de Gong's eyes can be really favored, if surprised. They looked at each other with smiles on their faces, as if they were old friends they hadn't seen in years, joking with each other about trivial matters. If we ignore the content of both sides' words and the gritted tone of Gray Eyes. Mysterious number fragment. 0. Chapter 9. Butterfly Effect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Alright, I'll leave if there's nothing else. I'm not in the mood to participate in your family's activities. Gray Tong is not interested in Kosish's conspiracy. Instead of continuing to fight this guy to the death, the fight should be based on a future where both sides can be killed. Neither of them can kill each other, but Kosai Che is still the god of Usus. Who knows if she has any unused means in her hands, and if she continues to fight, she will definitely suffer losses. Alright, should we make a deal? Terra, no. Corsica gave Gray Eyes a chip she couldn't refuse. Although I don't know why you're helping those guys from Rhode Island, I can give you face and let them leave Chernberg. What do you want? Gray Tong agreed to this transaction without hesitation, and she had no reason to refuse. I didn't expect it at the moment. Why don't you owe me a favor first? Corsica's move can be said to be very clever, but unfortunately, Grey Eyes underestimated Grey Eyes' shamelessness. Sure. Grey pupils turned around and left. This creates a very interesting situation. Both guys believe that the other side is being manipulated by their own calculations, and both feel that they are not at a disadvantage. Rhode Island, although we suffered losses during the previous operation in Shangcheng, fortunately, we did not suffer severe casualties, and we also obtained a lot of intelligence on the integration movement. We also rescued you, Doctor. As for the other content, it can only be decided with the consent of Dr. Kelsey, who is still in Longmen City. After Dubin finished all this to the doctor, he went to handle his own affairs. Hanging curtain to listen to politics, old woman. JPG, soon, the doctor and Amia arrived at Longmen together, and the person in charge of receiving them had a stern face. You were 14 minutes late, wasting my 14 minutes in vain. Follow me. Chen Huijia, the leader of the inspection team of the Longmen Guard Bureau, brought them to the location of Wei Yanwu, the ruler of Longmen. Your representatives from Rhode Island have already made contact with Governor Wei first. The storm caused by the deadly butterfly of integration movement is clearly just beginning, and Chernberg is just a bow before the butterfly takes off. Simple quarantine cannot deal with the integration movement. I believe the Longmen Guard Bureau is well aware of it. If it weren't for Rhode Island's assistance, Longmen would face huge losses by relying on its current strategy for treating infected individuals and resisting the attacks of the upcoming integrated movement. As soon as the doctor entered the door, he saw two people talking. On one side was a green film, which should be what Amia called Dr. Kelsey. The identity of the other person was also revealed. Wei Yanwu, the ruler of Longmen. Longmen does have experience in dealing with unarmed infected individuals, but it is feared that Longmen currently does not have experience in dealing with organized infected individuals thugs, which may cause unnecessary losses to Longmen. Based on Rhode Island's current experience, only infected individuals can better fight against them. Strong, calm, and extremely profound. This is the doctor's first impression of Kelsey. The just few sentences seem to be negotiating with Wei Yanwu, but in fact, they all revealed a strong sense of aggression between the words. To sum up, the just few sentences actually have the same meaning. Sir Wei, you don't want Longmen to suffer losses, do you? Wait, why do you suddenly feel like Kelsey has turned yellow? Is it an illusion? The doctor rubbed his eyes and decided to drink an extra bottle of rationality liquid today. To combat crime and aggression, the Imperial Guard is more than enough. Wei Yanwu is truly the leader of Longmen. How could he not hear the implied meaning of Kelsey? There is something in the things requested by Rhode Island that cannot be exchanged under the current conditions provided by Rhode Island. Even cooperation in temporary defense alone cannot be equated. In contrast, Rhode Island's asking price is a bit too high. To make up for the expenses of Longmen, my conditions are very simple, only two. Firstly, Rhode Island must assist the Coast Guard in resolving the threat posed by the integration movement to the Dragon Gate. This includes identifying the threats within the Dragon Gate and addressing issues related to the city's closure. The second one is to wait until you have completed the primary task. If you can't accept it, then I think all the conditions we mentioned before, as well as what you want, are. At this point, I cannot go into detail yet, but please don't forget that Rhode Island has no choice. We accept. Wei Yanwu is right. Rhode Island has no choice now. If they want to fight the integration movement and save infected people, big cities like Longmen are their best choice. So congratulations everyone, Longmen trusts you. Officer Chen will be fully responsible for coordinating with you. In the face of power and interests, life is even a living number. Looking at the conversation between Kelsey and Wei Yanwu, for some reason, the doctor's mind suddenly came up with this sentence. The inconspicuous butterfly stirred up its ordinary wings, who would believe that an inconspicuous bug could create a raging storm? Mysterious number fragment. 8.